I'm Amber Davis, and this is your 5-minute call. This is the space where musical theatre takes centre stage. From unforgettable backstage stories with incredible special guests to insights from my life and my theatre journey. We're leaving it all on the mic every single week, so let's jump in. This week, it is just me on the sofa talking all things Dancing on Ice when I'm returning to Pretty Woman and answering some of your questions. I just wanted to be real, raw and organic with you guys. That's why I created this podcast, so I hope you enjoy. Hello and welcome back to your 5-minute call with me, Amber Davis. This episode, there is no guests because, as you know, I have just come off the big old reality show Dancing on Ice, and I just thought this was going to be a perfect opportunity for me to talk about my experience, the highs, the lows, the very big lows, and what's coming up for me next. So let's get into it. So what happened was I got offered Dancing on Ice back in August last year. I'd already accepted Pretty Woman the musical, so there was a big conversation that had to happen about me taking a little sabbatical break. An opportunity came my way and I thought, gosh, when am I ever going to have this experience again? You know, I'm 27, I did not know how to ice skate and I hadn't been on telly in 7 years. And I just thought, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. We'd had a conversation with Pretty Woman's producers and they said, go for it. You have our blessing. And that's what I did. So I was planning on being off the show for 6 weeks. It's actually turned out I've been off it for 8, which is longer than I expected. And my gosh, am I excited to be back with my Pretty Woman family. I've missed them so much, but I have to shout out to them all because they have been my rock during this whole Dancing on Ice experience. And just for context, this is actually going to be aired after the final. And I actually got kicked out of the semi-finals on Sunday and it's now Tuesday. So it's a little bit fresh and raw. So we're going to dissect, get into it. I'm going to answer all of the darkest questions, really. So I started training for Dancing on Ice back in October. And I was doubling up. So I was doing 8 shows a week for Pretty Woman. And I was doing 2 hours of ice skating training a day. Now, at this point, I didn't know how to skate. So I had to learn all of the basic moves and like the foundations of being an ice skater, which was really, really difficult. Because as I've said before, 8 shows a week is tough, especially when you're on tour. And then add on top the 2 hours of training a day. I don't know how I did it, if I'm going to be honest. I kind of took every day as it came. And my team said, you know, this is going to be a lot of work. And I said, I know, but it's temporary. And I'm going to do it. When I put my mind to something, I will do it. Then that kind of led up to Christmas. So I was doubling up for about 2.5 months. Then I had 4 days off over Christmas and then I was straight into the whole Dancing on Ice experience. Now, don't get me wrong. No regrets. It's one of the most amazing things I've ever done in my life. A lot more challenging than I anticipated. I don't know why I thought it wasn't going to be as hard as it was. I think it was just how my brain worked. Like, oh, I'll be fine. This is going to be so much fun. But wow, I mean, where do I start? Mentally, it got harder for me throughout the season. And there's lots of different reasons why. Physically was easier. Although you put your body through the absolute mill, you know, you're training for hours a day, you get 1 day off. And I actually didn't have a day off because I'd be here filming my podcast episode. So I haven't had a day off in what feels like a very, very long time. And I'm not complaining. I feel very grateful. But when you're learning a new skill, I feel like there is so much information that you have to absorb and then you have to reproduce it onto the ice. And that for me was quite challenging because I'm a dancer. I'm trained as a dancer. So everything for me is can't bend your legs. You've got to be really tight everywhere. You know, if you're doing a pirouette, you suck in. Where with skating, it's a lot more down in your knees. You have to let go. It's a little bit more, not lazy, but Simon always said to me, my pro partner, who I absolutely adore, and we'll talk about him after, he always said, us skaters are lazy. So I had to let go. And I'm a control freak through and through. I'm a perfectionist. So that was really hard to navigate. And I feel a little bit sad because skating got a little bit easier for me this past week. It's like it clicked. And by that point, I was on borrowed time anyway. So just for context, if you didn't watch Dancing on Ice, I made it to the semi-finals and I was in the skate off 3 weeks in a row. So I got saved by the judges twice. I was up against Ricky Norwood the first time, love him. Then Eddie the Eagle the second time, which I just felt terrible for kicking out the competition. And then on Sunday, I was up against Adele Roberts and I just knew. I knew I was on borrowed time. Simon knew as well. We were at peace. And we went out on a high. We literally did our flying routine. We got 4 10s. So in total, we got the highest score of the season, which was 40. And we got a standing ovation from the judges, which blew my mind. It actually made me super emotional. So we couldn't have actually left on a bigger high. But guys, the turnaround week to week, we had 4 days to learn a brand new routine and to clean our skate off routine. And it was just, honestly, I'm laughing about it now because I don't know how I did it. But it was amazing. I mean, it pushed myself to limits that I didn't know I could go to. I feel like I'm a lot mentally stronger now than I was when I first started the experience. I always feel like when an opportunity comes your way, take it because you're meant to do it. And I feel like what Dancing on Ice did for me was made me grow into more of a stronger, braver person. And obviously it's completely out of my comfort zone. I'm used to being on stage. Where I feel like mentally it got tough for me was the backlash I was getting on social media. And I felt like I was the one that was getting the brunt of it more than any other contestant. And the thing is, the people that write in these comments, they know that we can see it because they write on our posts or they write on the Dancing on Ice posts. And that is, well, firstly, I was reading it from day one. The hate got worse throughout the season, but it really got into my head. I think maybe I was reading it and starting to believe that I didn't deserve to be in the competition because I was reading them. But then the feeling you get after skating and getting the scores from the judges, it was worth it. And it actually, all that hateful stuff gets pushed aside. But my gosh, I mean, at one point it was like a witch hunt. I thought, what have I done to deserve such negativity? And it's so crazy because I've left the competition and when I go on social media now, it's like, oh, she should have stayed or blah, 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 blah. And I just think, where was all the love during the competition? Anyway, I don't want to linger on that, but I had to get it in there that the one thing that let this experience down was the trolls. I actually deleted Twitter because I couldn't bear to see, for example, how hard as contestants and the pros and the production work to create a live show once a week. We go through so much stress. We go through such an intense process. And it was crazy, the negativity that we'd get. And at the end of the day, it's just a TV show. And I couldn't escape for it. I feel so, so proud of myself for signing up, doing it, and leaving with my head held high. The thing is, the audience that I've got listening to this, I know with my full heart, none of you would go and leave any type of negative comment on anyone's social media. But I just want to urge, please always be kind. Lead through life with kindness because no one really knows what they're doing. So it's all about going with the flow, being a nice person. Yeah, I don't want to talk about that anymore, but I still can't believe I was a semi-finalist on Dancing on Ice. I've learned how to skate. In the semi-finals, we learned how to fly. So Panto Palladium, if you're listening to this, if you're looking for a Tinkerbell at Christmas, I am available. I have an incredible job to go back to, Miss Vivian Ward. I have missed her so much. Like I said before, I've missed the cast so much as well. They have been my rocks. I actually had a handful of them come down to watch me live. And yeah, I just feel so grateful that I've built those relationships and friendships for life. A big, big shout out to Simon, who was my pro partner, who held my hand through every single moment of Dancing on Ice. He knows me inside out. We were like brother and sister. We would argue like cat and dog sometimes because I'd be like, no, I don't want to do that move. And he's like, you're doing that move. And I'd be like, no, it's too hard. And then lo and behold, would be doing it live on a Sunday. I couldn't have been paired with a better partner. He has just got so much empathy and compassion. He pushed me to my limits because he knew I had it in me and he knew I had the potential. So I love you so much if you're listening. But yes, going back into Pretty Woman. So you guys are getting the exclusive. Let me get you the date. I will be returning as Vivian Ward on the 18th of March in Milton Keynes, and then I will be doing the rest of the tour. So let's just get up some of the venues that we'll be visiting. So I start on Monday, March the 18th in Milton Keynes, where we do 15 shows. We then go to Edinburgh, Plymouth, Wales Millennium Centre, my homeland. We're only there for a week, which I'm a bit sad about. We then go to Bromley, Leeds, Sunderland, Belfast, which I'm excited about, Cork, Dublin, and so many more cities. So if you haven't booked your tickets, please do. It's an incredible show. I cannot wait to be reunited with my onstage lover, Mr. Oliver Saville. It's been a while. I'm actually going up to Manchester next week to have some vocal calls and rehearsals because I haven't done the show in over, my last show was December. So I really need to clean up, open my script, revisit my lines, and then I'll be back, which I'm just so, I just feel like how lucky am I to have experienced Dancing on Ice and then go back to being a lead in an incredible show. I'm just so happy and happy that I've been able to just touch base on Dancing on Ice. I mean, best experience of my life, toughest experience of my life. Cliche, but it's changed me as a person. I feel like after skating on live television every Sunday night, I feel like I'll be able to do anything. Now it's time for a quick interval. Go and powder your noses and we'll see you in 2. As you guys know, we like to offer the door to ask us questions. I've got a lovely question here. Do you actually enjoy speaking to fans at Stage Door? Now, I'm a chatterbox. As you guys know, I have my own podcast. I adore meeting fans at Stage Door. I love seeing familiar faces as well. Like, I don't actually know you, but I've definitely seen you at Stage Door before. I have like a picture memory and I'm like, I know you. Yeah, I love it. I love getting pictures. I love hearing what you guys thought about the show. I love hearing about your stories, or if you guys, sometimes it's like, oh, I saw you in this show, or I saw you in that show. And it's just so heartwarming. Even when I come out and it's raining and I'm like, you guys are amazing. You're literally standing here in the rain. Like, of course, I'll always give people the time of day. The only time sometimes I won't do Stage Door is if it's in between shows and I'm like starving. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to eat. Or I have like a meeting or something and I can't come out. But most of the time, I will, of course, make the efforts, come and give you guys a big cuddle. How do you rest your voice in between shows? That's a good one, really, because I feel like you push yourself to your max. Say you're doing matinee, you sing your track, and then you obviously have downtime, and then you have to do the show all over again. Do you know what my biggest advice is? Not to think about it. I just eat. I try and keep my voice warm by talking to people. I'm not the type of performer who has downtime or will like, oh, I'm going to be silent. I'm going to go on voice rest for half an hour. That for me just doesn't work. It does work for a lot of people. I know some people will stay in their dressing rooms and just have that moment to themselves. But for me, I just keep my voice warm. I'm constantly chatting anyway. I feel like all I've done for 27 years of my life is chat. So if I was to have vocal rest, I think my voice would be like, oh my gosh, what is she doing? why isn't she talking? So yeah, I kind of just keep it myself warm, and then I do a little vocal warm up at the 5-minute call, wink wink, before my second show. Next questiono, Ronaldo. Oh, what was the audition process like for Pretty Woman? Well, this is a really interesting story because I really didn't think I was going to get the job because I was so sick. I remember considering calling my agent and saying, is there any chance that we can reschedule? But when I looked at my diary for the week after, I thought, oh my gosh, I actually cannot fit it in. So I'm going to have to go. I actually only went in the room once, which worried me because I knew I didn't have a second shot at it. They wanted to see me one time and one time only, which is unusual for a casting process because every other audition I've done, like for Lorraine Baines, for Campbell Davis, for Judy Burnley, I went in multiple times. Where with Viv, I went in once. The American director was in there, Jerry Mitchell, and I'd heard of him, but I'd never worked for him before. So it was like a first impression type thing. And I was like, oh, guys, you know, I've spoke about it before. I'm not great with auditions. I hate them because I just get so nervous. And I was already sick. So, you know, when you're sick, you're not as in control of your voice. I was shaking. I remember I took in 2 Nurofen and 2 Anadin Extra, which has got caffeine in it, before going into the audition. The caffeine was just hitting my veins and I was just like adrenaline through the roof. And I was sick with, I think it was like COVID-esque type flu, but it wasn't COVID. It was like repercussions of COVID. I feel like we all had it, you know, when you just get sick every 3 or 4 months with what felt like COVID, but wasn't. It was that moment in our lives. And I remember I did the scenes first because I've said to you guys before, I will always start with the scenes because it gets me in character. And they were great. They were fine. And then I had to sing 4 of Vivian's songs. And the parts they wanted me to sing were basically just the belty bits. So I did the first bit. I did Anywhere But Here. And it was fine. I was like, okay. The Anadin Extras worked. And then we did the end of You're Beautiful, and I was reaching, I was pushing. I was like, and I obviously went in and I said, I am sick, but I didn't want it to be an excuse, you know. I didn't want it to give a sob story. And then right at the end of the audition, they got me to sing I Can't Go Back, which is the biggest number of the show for Vivian. I managed to get through it, but I did sound vocally tired and I was pushing for the notes. Like it wasn't flying out of me or anything, you know. I was working hard to get up there. And when I went to go and speak, so I'd obviously belted for about 15 minutes, I had no voice left. And I thought, oh my God, they're going to think that I'm vocally unhealthy. And I just kind of went into a spiral, obviously out of the room. And when I walked out of there, I just thought, I'm not going to get that. And I didn't hear for weeks. And then I don't know how I got it, but I got it. And I feel like I proved my worth once I started rehearsals. The thing is that it's the same producers as 9 to 5. So Richard Darbourne and Dom Shaw, who came to watch Bring It On and stuff, they knew what I could do. So luckily they kind of went off that and not what I did in the room. But I was lucky. Next question is, does it ever get repetitive, boring, doing the same show 8 times a week? Now, let's not sugarcoat it. I feel like it's so inhumane to do the same thing over and over and over again. So when you get word anxiety or what am I singing here? Like that is normal because it's Groundhog Day every day, isn't it? You do the same track, you wear the same costumes, you have the same wig, you do the same makeup. And sometimes you can feel like, oh my gosh, what am I singing here? You know, that's why holidays are good, or that one day off you get a week, have the day off. For me personally, I don't find it boring because I love it. And I would do this job for free. I really would. And I personally feel like you never do 2 shows the same because the audience is always different. And I've said that before, I think. Audiences never laugh in the same place twice. Or someone will shout something out and it will knock something, or you have a cover on, or something funny happens on stage. Like no show is the same, or you have a show stop. So I don't find it never, and I don't think I could ever find it boring. But repetitive, yes. Like sometimes I have to be like, whoa, 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 hang on, let me revisit this scene because I'm slipping into a bit of a monotonous cycle here and actually I want to revisit it. And then what I normally do is make different choices, especially Ollie Savile's brilliant. I play against Ollie as Vivian and he plays Edward, and sometimes we just start doing things in a scene. He'll deliver a line differently, so I receive it differently. The scene will then change. Like the message is still the same, but the way we deliver it is different. It's like at the beginning of Act 2, we have an argument, and that argument has never been the same twice. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing what you can do with live theatre. Next question is the most challenging song you've ever had to sing. Ooh, it's a difficult one, that. In 9 to 5, I used to sing a song called Get Out and Stay Out, and it came 3/4 through the show. So it was just coming to the end of Act 2. And I don't know why I did this, but when I went in for the audition, I optioned up at the end of I Can't Go Back, and lo and behold, they wanted it to stick and stay for 8 shows a week. And I think that was the biggest song I've ever sung, especially live. And I remember doing it every night and just thinking, here we go, here's the big bit. But I never let it get in my head. Basically, how I do things is once I've got a song locked in, I convince myself that's muscle memory now. So it will always be easy, as in I really take that lightly, easy to sing. It's always a push, if you're tired or whatever. But that's how I mentally prepare myself, is that, oh, it's muscle memory now. So I can definitely do it. I just convince myself like, oh my gosh, yeah, I can do it. But I Can't Go Back. The end of I Can't Go Back. Oh, no, not I Can't Go Back. Sorry, Get Out and Stay Out. I'm mixing 2 songs here. If you go on Spotify and listen to our cast recording of 9 to 5 and go right to the end of Get Out and Stay Out, you'll hear the option up. Yeah, why I did that? I don't know. Talk about making life hard for myself. But I loved it. It was such a rewarding song to sing. And I remember at the time I was really, really heartbroken. So I really went into that song with like every inch of my body. Best piece of advice and worst piece of advice I've ever been given. Ooh. The worst bit of advice I'd probably say is like, some people have insinuated that the job needs to consume my life. And I would never survive in a role if all I did was live, breathe, and eat that role. I would get in my head, yes, it's a job and I'm doing it on tour or I'm doing it in the West End, but my God, no one could pay me enough for it to take over my life. I need my downtime. I need time away from the cast. I've loved every cast that I've been in, but I need my time, I need to, even if it's in between scenes, if I want to go on TikTok just to give my brain a break, I will, I just feel like some people think that it's the be all and end all to play the character. And I would never, ever enjoy it if I did that. Like, we're dressing up for a living. It's not life or death. If I have an off show, I have an off show. I'm human. I'm a human being, I want to enjoy it. If I'm going to be doing this role for a year, best believe I'm going to live my life. I am going to go out. I am going to go and get drunk with the cast. I'm not going to let the anxiety get to me. That's just me personally, and I've always been that way, because I hope my sister doesn't mind me saying this, but when my sister first started in the industry, she was consumed by her health of her voice, and she's really grown out of it now because she realised, oh, I can still have the best career and not take my life too seriously. But I learned from her. I was like, that's how I don't want to be. I don't want to wake up every morning riddled with, is my voice going to work today? Am I going to forget my lines? I cannot do that. Otherwise, I'd hate it. I'd hate this career. So it's basically, don't take yourself too seriously. And then the best bit of advice I've been given is cancel and continue. And I tell you who told me that was Ben Joyce, my wonderful boyfriend. I remember, I think it was in Back to the Future. It must have been Back to the Future. And I must have done something wrong. I must have said a line wrong and thought, oh my gosh, that's the type of show I'm going to have today. where you write it off because you're like, I'm exhausted. My brain isn't communicating with my mouth and it's coming out as gibberish because best believe that happens. And I remember him saying to me, Amber, cancel and continue. Don't take it into your next scene. And I thought, oh my gosh, those small words blew my mind. And every single time now, if something happens on stage, I cancel and continue. I just think, oh, that happened. I'm not going to let it ruin my show. And that will forever stick with me. And another bit of advice, which, God, I'm mentioning Ollie Saville quite a lot this episode. I'm obviously missing you, my love. This is just general quote in life. Is when I was in the skate off and Dancing on Ice and I was texting my friends and I was like, oh my gosh, the public hate me. He was like, don't be silly. He texted me saying, someone with nothing to lose is a very dangerous person. And I swear to God, I want to get that tattooed on my body somewhere because those words hit differently. I just thought, wow, someone with nothing to lose is a very dangerous person. And I love that. And you can receive that however way you want to take it, whether you're going through a breakup, whether you're going in for an audition. Let those words resonate with you because it opened a whole different door in my mind. And I'm so grateful, Ollie, that you passed over those words to me. Thank you so much for listening. This was just a solo ep, just so I could get all of my emotions and feelings out because you guys know I have created this podcast to be raw and organic with you guys. And I wanted you to know what I'm feeling, how I'm feeling. And can I just say, the response that we've had to this podcast has been absolutely insane. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for engaging with us on social media. We appreciate you so much, and we have incredible guests lined up, and we've got amazing episodes coming your way. So keep an eye out. Thank you so much. Bye.